Greetings from Indica Yoga. We request Savita Saiji to present the invocation.
योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचा मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचा मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि पतञ्जलिम्
Thank you so much, Savita ji. We now begin our session of the Global Festival of Yoga held by Indica Yoga, which is the spearheading the yoga activities of Indica Academy. And the theme for this year, given the context of what the world is going through, is healing, well-being, and wisdom. We have with us today Dr. Kankeswaran and Dr. Raj Vedam, both of whom are faculty at the Hindu University of America. They will present today a discussion as well as the video known as Yog Darshan, a musical video released this year to commemorate International Yoga Day. I apologize for the light in my apartment. The video is the brainchild of Dr. Kanniks, and it's a powerful musical exploration of yoga that brings together the rich history of yoga referenced with Shastriya Indian music. Singers representing many parts of India have come together virtually to present over 20 ragas in this production. Enchanting visuals from all over the world have also been included in it. Mentions of yoga can be seen in ancient Hindu sacred texts such as the Rig Veda, the Upanishads, the Puranas, the Bhagavad Gita, and the works of Tamil yogis, in sculptures chiseled across the subcontinent, and in the teachings of Buddhism and Jainism. Yog Darshan is a musical cruise through India, through time and space, focusing specifically on the last 3 millennia of yoga history, which is encapsulated musically in 24 minutes. Strangely enough, on International Yoga Day, there was a tweet by a Twitter historian who posted a picture and told us that this picture is a reminder that India is the birthplace of yoga, and yoga is intrinsically associated with Sanatana Dharma. This was the skeleton of a man buried in Padmasana, and which was excavated from Rajasthan, and this dates back to 900 BC to 700 BCE. The skeleton belonged to a man who was 35 to 40 years old when he undertook his samadhi. He faces north and his grave was smeared with cow dung and ash. This is typically how yogis are buried, not cremated, in India even today. Aspects of traditional yoga go back, as we can see from this, to at least 2,700 years. I think the two scholars, one musical and one a historian, who are with us today, are going to discuss all of these facets, and we are grateful to them. I now request my colleague Arunima to introduce Dr. Raj.
Thank you very much, Aparnaji. Uh, Dr. Raj Vedam is the co-founder of the think tank Indian History Awareness and Research. You could check their YouTube channel, and he resides in Houston. He also is associated with the Hindu University in America, and his research interests are many, which include engineering, applied mathematics, artificial intelligence, scientific validation, and of course, Indian history. Professor Rajvedam, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you, Aranimaji, and organizers for inviting me. So very quickly, let me give a background, the history of yoga before we go to our main program. So we live in an era today when yoga has been commercially reduced to abominations that are diametrically opposed to what yoga really is. We see exponents of beer yoga or nude yoga or its many deracinated variants. It is therefore critical to understand the authentic tradition of yoga and what it really is. And we are fortunate to hear from Dr. Kannikeswaran in this talk and documentary. So, but before that, I'd like to discuss very briefly on the history of yoga to set a stage for this. So we find that archaeological finds of yoga abound in the country, starting from the very famous Pashupati seal of 3000 BCE from Mohenjo-daro, showing a figure in Padmasana pose. Or if you look at the terracotta figurines in various yoga asana poses found by renowned archaeologists, both B.B. Lal and S.R. Rao from Lothal and Kalibangan from 2000 BCE. Or if you look at the finds Aparnaji just talked about, skeletons from various parts of India, not just Balatal in Rajasthan, but from various parts showing yoga, Padmasana pose. These skeletons are in Samadhi in that kind of a pose. Or if you look at temple carving showing yoga poses, we see widespread practice of yoga in ancient India. We also see literary works from the Vedas to Upanishads, the Buddhist works, Jain works, and many other works from ancient, medieval, modern period that talk about yoga. And we also will hear today about the great codifier of Yoga Sutras, Patanjali. It is fascinating that in addition to widespread practice of yoga in Akhand Bharat, we also see yoga has had impact on various other cultures. This is little known by most people. We know that Greek scribes who accompanied Alexander in 327 BCE, they described yogis who practiced what they call aloofness and different postures, standing, sitting, or lying motionless. In China, thanks to Buddhism, we see Taoist meditation, an outcome of the sixfold yoga path, or Vipassana, which Goenka described as being the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which made major impact on Taoist meditation. Or in Japan, it became the Zazen meditation, or Zen for short. In Korea, it became the Son meditation. People will be surprised to learn even Islam was impacted by yoga. In Islam, the Sufis cherry-picked traditions of Hinduism that were not at odds with Islamic injunctions, and assimilation started with the Islamic invasions of India, going back to 711 current era itself, and the subsequent encounters with yoga. So their art of meditation or contemplation science is the work of Imam Ghazali in the 10th century in Iran. And it has been practiced by many since then, where the default condition of mankind is immersion in the illusion of the world and the object of meditation to seek the reality behind the illusion. You can see how they're trying to circumvent Islamic injunctions and try to do this. Christianity too encountered yoga along two paths. The Eastern path picked it up from Buddhism and Hinduism, whereas the Western path picked it up from Spain via the Muslims. Eastern Orthodox Church used meditation called hesychasm, founded by Gregory in Armenia in the 6th century, where special postures and breathing rituals are used, accompanied by the repetition of a short prayer like a mantra. Western Christianity, Aquinas in the 13th century declared meditation is necessary for devotion. It was expanded by a John in the 16th century and Teresa of Avila, who meditated for hours each day using the rosary and contemplating Christian symbols. In modern times, we see yoga asanas have made their way worldwide. In this brief history, I hope you'll see the importance of adhering to an authentic tradition of yoga, and we'll see that in today's documentary. So back to you, Aparnaji.
Thank you, Dr. Raju. Varsha will now introduce Dr. Kannikeswaran.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Dr. Vedam, for your insights. A very warm welcome to you, Shri Kanniks. Before he takes over the panel, a few words about him. Kannikeswaran is a visionary musician, composer, music educator, and a writer with several recordings, productions, and scores to his credit. He is known as the magical musician from Madras. His skill lies in his ability to create captivating music that are easily accessible to a very broad audience base. He's also hailed as the pioneer of Indian American choral movement. He has founded and directed Indian American community choirs in Cincinnati, Bethlehem, Houston, and Tampa, and he has created a large repertoire of choral music based on ragas. A pleasure and honor to have you with us today, sir. Once again, we welcome you, and over to you.
Kanniks ji, you're muted. Please remove your mute.
I just did. Okay. Namaste, everyone. Good evening to everyone in India. Good morning to everyone in the US. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. So before I present the documentary, just a couple of words. Over the years, Raj has sung in one of my musicals that was back in 2010. I've produced and directed musicals which present narratives on India, and we perform this in so many different places. This lockdown was literally a catalyst for us to transcend that and get into the online world. So having just said that, the documentary that we're going to view it's about 27 minutes long. It includes a narrative spoken out by my daughter, plus the musical and visual story of yoga as narrated from an Indic perspective, covering a period of about three millennia. So let me start that, and then we will discuss more about it. And I thank everybody that's participated in the making of the video and in making the whole thing happen, and we'll get to that also in just a little bit. Just want to make sure you can see the screen. Raj, are we good?
Yes, you can hear.
Okay, and the screen too, right? I'm starting the video. Yeah, cool.
Welcome to Yog Darshan. Join us on a musical presentation exploring the sights, sounds, texts, and traditions from all over India in classical Tamil and Sanskrit that illustrate that the yoga we practice today has been an integral and sustained part of the cultural and religious traditions of India for millennia.
मनोनवद्वार निषिद्ध वृत्ति हृदिव्यवस्थाप्य समाधिवश्यं यमक्षरं तदक्षरमिदं सर्वं भूतं भवत् भविष्यदिति सर्व ओंकारे शान्तं शिवम् अद्वैतं स आत्मा
शुद्धात्मा विजितात्मा जितेन्द्रियः सर्वभूतात्मा कुर्वन्नपि न लिप्यते आत्मौपम्येन सर्वत्र समं पश्यति अर्जुन सुखं वा यदि वा दुःखं स योगे परमो मतः ज्ञानविज्ञानतृप्तात्मा कूटस्थो विजितेन्द्रियः युक्त इत्युच्यते योगी समलोष्टाश्मकाञ्चनः
The phrase Ashtanga Yoga is a well-known one. Many would also be aware of the Yoga Sutras of the great sage Patanjali, and with verses in the ancient Upanishads and the Gita that deal with yoga. The classical Tamil language is rich in yoga-related writings in the first millennium. The Tirumandiram presents Ashtanga Yoga in a framework of Shiva Bhakti. Tantric traditions across a wide and diverse sweep of land from Assam to the deep south emphasize yoga, as do the works of Adi Shankara of Kerala, who traveled the length and breadth of India.
புடைத்து ஒருமையுள் ஆமை போல் ஐந்தடக்கலாற்றின் எழுமையும் ஏம புடைத்து
நியமமே எண்ணிலா ஆதரம் நயமுரு பிராணாயாமம் பிரத்யாகாரம் சயமிகு தாரணை தியானம் சமாதி பயமுரு மட்டாங்கம் ஆவதும் மாமே
பத்திரம் கோமுகம் பங்கயம் கேசரி சுத்திரம் வீரம் சுகாதனமே பத்திரம் கோமுகம் பங்கயம் கேசரி சுத்திரம் வீரம் சுகாதனமே எட்டு सहस्राराम्बुजारूढा चक्रकोपरि संस्थिता महाशक्ति कुण्डलिनी समयाचार तत्परा सहस्राराम्बुजारूढा चक्रकोपरि संस्थिता महाशक्ति कुण्डलिनी समयाचार तत्परा महाशक्ति कुण्डलिनी चक्रकोपरि संस्थिता महाशक्ति कुण्डलिनी
नियमस्त्यागो मौनं देशश्च कालता आसनं मूलबन्धश्च देहसाम्यं च दृक्स्थितिः प्राणसंयमनं चैव प्रत्याहारश्च धारणा आत्मध्यानं समाधिश्च प्रोक्तान्यङ्गानि वैक्रमात् हठयोगेन राजयोगसंयुतो भवेत् हठयोगेन राजयोगसंयुतो भवेत् हठयोगेन राजयोगसंयुतो भवेत् हठयोगेन राजयोगसंयुतो भवेत् संयोगो योग इत्युक्तो जीवात्मा परमात्मनो संयोगो योग इत्युक्तो जीवात्मा परमात्मनो जीवात्मा परमात्मनो
The northern state of Kashmir is the birthplace of various works such as the Shiva Sutras and the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. It is also the place of origin of Sarangadev, whose musical treatise Sangeeta Ratnakara stresses Kundalini Yoga. It is clear from Tamil literature that these terms were casually used in the vernacular, and that these ideas were present and alive in various parts of India 1,000 years ago.
सकारेण बहिर्जाति हकारेण विषे पुनः हंसेत्यमो मन्त्रं जीवो जपति निश्यतः हंसेति मन्त्रम् हंसेति मन्त्रम्
வேகம் அடக்கி விளங்குமை ஞானிக்கு யோகந்தானேது கடி குதம்பா யோகந்தானேது கடி அட்டாங்க யோகம் அறிந்தமை ஞானிக்கு முட்டாங்கமேது கடி அட்டாங்க யோகம் அறிந்தமை ஞானிக்கு முட்டாங்கமேது கடி
The Nath tradition of the early medieval period produced works on Hatha Yoga that elaborated upon the physical poses. From Gorakhpur in northern India to Gujarat in western India, depiction of yoga poses in Vijayanagar, asanas were firmly etched in word, song, stone, and metal. The Tamil Shaiva Siddhanta stresses Ashtanga Yoga, the Hamsa Ajapa meditation, and the Ajapa dance, which continue to appear in verses and in art music across India and have been an integral part of temple traditions in the deep south for centuries.
हठस्य प्रथमाङ्गत्वात् आसनं पूर्वमुच्यते कुर्यात् तदासनं स्थैर्यम् आरोग्यं चाङ्गलाघवम् चतुरशीत्यासनानि शिवेन कथितानि च सिद्धं पद्मं तथा सिंहं भद्रं वेति चतुष्टयम्
स्वानन्दविग्रहं यस्य सन्निध्यमात्रेण चिदानन्दायते तनुः चिदानन्दायते तनुः चिदानन्दायते चिदानन्दायते
நிகழ்வுகமார்க்கம் அட்டாங்க யோகம் முற்றும் உழத்தல் உழந்தவர் சிவந்தன் உருவத்தை பெறுவாரே வினைகள் உகமார்க்கம் அட்டாங்க யோகம் முற்றும் உழத்தல் உழந்தவர் சிவந்தன் உருவத்தை பெறுவாரே சகமார்க்கம் யோகமார்க்கம் யோகமார்க்கம் யோகமார்க்கம்
नमस्तुभ्यं विरूपाक्ष नमस्ते दिव्यचक्षुषे नमस्तुभ्यं विरूपाक्ष नमस्ते दिव्यचक्षुषे साङ्ख्ययोगाख्यभूतानां नमस्ते शाम्भवाय ते नमस्तुभ्यं विरूपाक्ष पुरुषेश्वराय च नमस्तुभ्यं विरूपाक्ष पुरुषेश्वराय च
खेलति 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 ब्रह्माण्डे खेलति 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 ब्रह्माण्डे हंसस्सोऽहं 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 खेलति 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 ब्रह्माण्डे
अहङ्कारेण बहिर्याति सहकारेण विशेत् पुनः अजपा नाम गायत्री जीवो जपति सर्वदा
हंसस्सोऽहं 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 हंसस्सोऽहं
यमनियमोऽध्यष्टाङ्गयोगविहितं मन्त्राद्यजपां सध्यानं मानसगुरुगुहरूपं भजरे
योगी विदिता जपानटन रंग सोमास्कंद विधि विटंक त्यागराज पालया शुमा
The 20th century witnessed an awakening ushered in by the great spiritual leader Swami Vivekananda. Globalization led to the spread of ideas and the practice of Hatha Yoga and its associated health benefits worldwide. The Indic word yoga is now a part of a global vocabulary. Let us acknowledge and celebrate the dharmic spiritual ecosystem behind the word yoga. A system which, on one front, stresses Patanjali's goal of discovering the true nature of oneself, the Yoga Yagnya Valkya's goal of finding union with the oneness of existence, and Yoga Marga of the Shiva Bhakti tradition. We offer our gratitude to the rishis, yogis, authors, and innumerable nameless gurus and acharyas of India, who over the past 3 millennia have been silent contributors to the well-being of humanity. As yoga, which is ingrained in a multitude of religious traditions all over India, continues to be embraced around the world.
योगभूमिका विस्मयो 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 योगभूमिका.
There's no doubt that yoga is for all of humanity, especially during these trying times when we as a community need to come together to defeat our common enemies, such as the pandemic of today and endemic problems of the globe, such as poverty and mistrust. The physical and spiritual well-being of the world is our ultimate common goal. Join us in wishing the best for one and all in the true spirit of an ancient Hindu blessing. May all be blessed with boundless joy. May all be free from needless fear. In this world of harmony, may peace and joy prevail.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kanniks. This is such a brilliant video. I'm sure all of us in the audience are totally mesmerized. And as one musician said, India does not focus on music therapy, unlike other nations who use music for therapy. And that's because in India, we go beyond therapy, and music is for renunciation and going even beyond this physical body. And you have demonstrated it in full measure, transported us to a totally different realm. I now invite Dr. Raj Vedamji, to have a conversation with Dr. Kanniks on this video and more.
Thank you, Aparnaji. So, Dr. Kanniks, how do I react to a documentary like this? How do I react? That was an outstanding, magnificent production. It had all the grandeur and the scope of your earlier Shanti production, for example. Shanti we saw live, and this one we saw on the screen, but I think the grandeur, you captured that. Whatever you wanted to show in Shanti, you've captured the essence in this production. I loved it from start to end.
Thank you so much, Raj. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
What you've also shown is that the story of the Indian civilization can be told in so many lenses.
Yes.
You have brought out Indian civilization's history so beautifully using the lenses of yoga and music. So many superlatives come to mind to describe this very important documentary in my perspective. So many layers of symbolism that you've infused in every scene, from literary works quoted, to the ragas that you have selected, to the scenery that you have shown, and to the singers that you have selected. I don't even know where to begin the discussion. So in the words of a wise man from Lewis Carroll, I'll say, let me start at the beginning. And when I come to the end, we'll end. So my question to you, Dr. Kanniks, you begin the documentary with a sloka from Kumara Sambhavam, describing Shiva's state of dhyana. You selected Ujjain to start the story with a raga Yaman. Can you please elaborate on why you made these choices?
Yeah, Raj, first of all, thank you for your very kind and generous words. And I will answer this question just in a minute. But before I say anything, I wanted to acknowledge every single Purvika of our generation who has spoken about yoga through essays or papers or workshops or otherwise, because it's our narrative, and it's important for the right narrative to be shared with the rest of the world, because we are at a critical juncture in the sense many things about India are reaching the rest of the world, and a lot of it is absorbed and assimilated, probably even appropriated, and whatever it is, any word you can use there, in a very superficial way. So I think it's important to, we know about the history of, many people know about the globalization of yoga in the last 100 years, but what yoga is on the surface, with all the yoga clubs, yoga boutiques, and the decorated spaces, the paraphernalia that goes with it, even the supply chains. I mean, they are the tip of the iceberg, or probably even just a dot on the tip of the iceberg of the history that's way below all that. And I've covered only 3 millennia of the whole thing, and only in whatever I could in about 27 minutes. And you were part of the Shanti musical production in 2010 when we worked together. So with Shanti, the thing was, it was a grand narrative on the cultural history of India. And it was told live. And actually, that's what I wanted to do with yoga. But then the pandemic hit us. So we had to adapt. And it was probably a blessing in disguise that enabled the creation of this documentary, and so that it can be shared with a lot more people online. If we had done it live, we probably would not be having this conversation online with all these wonderful people. So first of all, I wanted to thank everyone, and also just say one point here before I answer the question. This is a multimedia work which combines research with contextual visuals, contextual captions, and text painting, as I would call it. I'll explain that later. And then a music score, which is based on, again, ragas based on context, singers based on context, the orchestration also to an extent based on context, and a whole bunch of citations, translations, and captions, and all on the artistic front. Plus, if you talk about the logistics, there's the wide range of networks that are needed to make this happen. And also the networking, the inherent nature of the multimedia, which is designed to reach out to the entire world, which it hasn't yet. And I'm praying to everybody assembled here that you, for support and for the blessings and the grace to make it reach out there. And with that in mind, let's get into the invocation. See, invocation, we traditionally start any narrative with an invocation to, I don't even know how to explain it. We get ourselves rooted in the spot with that invocation, and what other better person can we have than Mahakavi Kalidasa to start the narration, to start the invocation in this context. So the words here, this is a shloka that describes the meditation of Shiva. And what is Shiva engaged in meditation for? He is depicting the state of the control of senses, with the entire focus on the oneness. And we have also, if you go back to the video, you will see that we juxtapose this with images of seals from the Indus Valley, showing the figure of a yogi engaged in meditation, just like it is described in the Kumara Sambhava, in the Siddhasana pose and all that. And the raga is Yaman, and the raga Yaman or Kalyan is a beautiful raga to start out something very auspicious. And that is the reason for the choice of this raga. And the singer here is Abhay Jodhpurkar, who is from, who was actually introduced into films by A.R. Rahman several years ago. He sang a song called Mungil Thotam in Tamil, which became extremely popular. So it is very nice of him to agree to sing in this production. There's another thing in here, layer in here. So Abhay is originally from Indore. And guess where Indore is? Ujjain. So it's like the song is nailed to the center of India, Madhya Desha. So that is where we start everything. So
outstanding. Very nice to hear that. And my co-author, Sitaram Ayagiri, he also pointed out one more layer over there. He said the selection you've done brings out how Shiva's dhyana is representing the pre-manifestation of the cosmos. From there, we go to the cosmos being manifested, and then so on. And yoga as a means to yoke with the union once again. So he read that also into the way you selected. Outstanding.
Nice. Thank you.
So let me go to the next question. That leads to the question of you continue to start with describing Omkara.
Yeah.
You're quoting the Mandukya Upanishad. You said this in the Raga Marva. And then you go on to quote the Kathopanishad, which you said to Raga Meg, and one more in Raga Arjo. So can you please describe what are we hearing in this section?
See, this section is a very natural extension of the first one. So we show the idea of meditation on the oneness of existence, the absolute oneness, the Brahmandam, whatever you call it. And that can be reduced just to one syllable, which is Omkara. And we don't say that, the Upanishads say that. And so we bring that into focus here. So Om represents the past, the present, the future, and the entirety of existence itself. So and that comes in the Rag Marva, which is very meditative by nature. And the two singers, Vanraj and Balraj Shastri of Ahmedabad, along with the two supporting singers, Radhika and Priya, have really brought out the essence of that out there. And then that translates into that transcends into, okay, first, so what is Om here? And then we get into the next verse, which I've introduced from the Upanishads, which actually defines yoga as the control of the senses. And this is one of the oldest definitions of yoga. And then we jump into the Gita, which has tons of references to yoga, and actually not just references. It talks about, it's an exposition in a powerful way, which I'm not really qualified to speak about, but at least we have access to the Gita much more in many more ways today than we ever did before. You have translations available anywhere, everywhere. And I just used 3 shlokas from the Gita, chanted in the traditional way. And I deliberately used the sound of a shank, the Shankhanadam, before the chanting of the Gita to signify so many different things. One is the Kurukshetra itself and the space where it was delivered. And also in a contemporary way, this is a signal to remember Doordarshan's broadcast of the Mahabharata. So the raga itself, the sound of the Shankhanada and all that, bring you memories of Doordarshan's Mahabharata there, definitely. And that was intentional. And then come the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is a very important work. And nowadays, a lot of people are talking about the Yoga Sutras, and it sometimes amuses me when I hear people refer to them as Yoga Sutras and all that stuff, but more on that later. But Yoga Sutras are I don't want to describe them here. There's a lot of people on this group that know a lot more about them. But to represent, the Yoga Sutras are not in meter, right? They are sutras. There's the terse phrases. They are tweets, so to say. Just like the Tirukkural is a collection of tweets. The sutras are all collection of tweets, basically, from a long time ago. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And then Yama Niyama Asana Pranayama Pratyahara Dharana Dhyana Samadhi Ashta Angani. That's all. That is all there is in that. It's not, they're not in meter or anything like that. So I set them to this slow and deliberate meter in the raga Jog. And there's a reason for that. Jog stands for yoga, right? So that is how those two gel in here. And actually, this is a composition that I created a few years ago, and we've performed it in a few places also. So that brings us to the end of segment number 1, just before the segue into segment 2. And again, thanks for the insightful questions, Raj.
So listening to you, it occurs to me that many of our past literary works are famous for being very terse, and typically we need gurus and acharyas to give us bhashyas and commentaries to help us understand what did the original composer writer have in mind. Your works remind me of that over here, Kanniksji, because you're infusing so much of symbolism and extra things in every aspect. So unless one is well rooted in the tradition, it's difficult to understand, perhaps for a casual listener, to see so many layerings that you've done in this work. So,
well, thank you so much, Raj, for uncovering so many of them in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. So next thing is, I found one more thing fascinating in your work, given today's state of discourse especially the divisive discourses that exist in India,
Yeah.
thanks to the British, thanks to the colonialists, Eurocentric people, and so on. So I found your references to yoga from the deep south absolutely fascinating, because how it is tying it up to the rest of the country. You quoted Tirukural in Raga Bauli and Tirumandiram in Raga Mohanam and Lalita Sahasranamam in Raga Lalita. You also quoted, obviously and must, Adi Shankara's Aporaksha Anubhuti in Raga Kedar. Please describe the section for us. It's so important.
Oh yeah, thank you, Raj, for bringing it up. See, growing up in Chennai, the word Patanjali was used at home quite a lot. Okay, I don't. It's probably an idiosyncrasy of our household, because my grandmother was a deep devotee of Shiva, and she was deep into the Tamil hymns and all that. And Tirumular was also a word that was used commonplace. My party, her brother, we used to call him Porasava Katumama, and all these are people from the past, literally from a bygone era. Party used to talk about, she used to quote one mantram from the Tirumandiram every day. Anbum Sivam in Irandenbar Arivilar and all that. So people, the people who do not know the truth refer to Shiva and love as two different entities, but they are not, but they are one and the same, and so on and so forth. She used to chant that every day. So I grew up listening to that. And so to me, when we talk about, so I've written an earlier dance production based on the Sthala Puranas at Chidambaram, where Patanjali and Vyagarpada come to witness the cosmic dance of Shiva. So to me, Patanjali is South Indian. He's a Tamilian. That is how I was raised. So to me, there's no difference between the North and the South. To me, there is absolutely no difference between Hindustani and Carnatic music. We deal with ragas, we deal with swaras. We just have different modes of expression. Period. That's it.
Right.
So when you look at it from that standpoint, there is no this and there is no that. And I think we are all working towards a common goal. And so I hope that has come out in this section 2 of this video, because that represents something that I very fundamentally believe in, and I want it to come out. So the first section was Mylapore. We subtly showed a visual from today's Mylapore, which is where Thiruvalluvar lived. We've also shown a visual from a temple that's actually dedicated to Thiruvalluvar, and we use a verse sung by, which talks about the control of the senses, Orumayul Amai Pol, and all that. And this is sung by Kalai Magan. Kalai Magan is the grandson of the Padma Shri recipient, a very, what can I say? Subbu Arumugam is his name. The reason I hesitated was I just didn't want to take his name. So he's an amazing artist. He's been doing Villup part in Yog Darshan for decades together. And this is the third generation that is probably many more generations have done it before him. But Kalai Magan is also a classic. He's a faculty of music in Chennai, and he also does Villup part. So he has the combination of the Carnatic idiom as well as the folk idiom with which he's so expressive. So he has really brought out the essence of the Kural there. Then we jump into Tirumular, about whom I just talked about before. Tirumular has sung the Tirumandram, which is 3,330 verses. It's all rooted in Shiva Bhakti, and it's part of the Siva Agama tradition, of the Saiva Siddhanta tradition, and all that kind of stuff. But in there's a whole chapter on yoga, and there's a huge section on Ashtanga Yoga. What more can you want? And I had actually stumbled into this, I think in 2013 or 2014, when I was reading the Tirumandiram, and that's a long story as to how I ran into it. But when I was reading it, I ran into this Iyama Niyamami Yanila Adanam Nayamuru Pranayamam Pratyaga. The words started ringing and making sense. Attanga Mame, Attanga, Mashtanga Yoga, Pranayama, Pratyaka. My God, I've heard these before. So at that time, I was not even familiar with Patanjali. So once I read this, I said, okay, we have to present this in music somewhere. So I said this to music, and we had it presented with a dance choreography in the Tamil Nadu Foundation in 2014. Then again, in another place in Columbus, I think 2017. Then I dug out a few more verses where actually this man, this cowherd yogi, describes asanas, not now, not 500 years ago, not 1,000 years ago, more than about 1,500 years ago, okay? And this is in Tamil in a manner that you can understand. So he talks about the Padmasana being the king of the asanas, he talks about Kukutasana, he talks about so many other things. And I set all this to music, and we sang it as a 100-member choir in the World Tamil Conference last year, in 2 years ago, in 2019 in Chicago, which was seen by like 5,000 people or so. So Tirumular he should be part of the mainstream yoga discourse, period. Right. That's it. Everybody should talk about him. It's not just enough to talk about the rest of the literature that people talk about. I mean, it's one thing to say yoga is ancient and all that, but here's a concrete example. You can understand, you can translate it, and it is just out there. And Tirumular is taken out in procession once a year in Malapur as a part of the 63 Nayanmars. We see him, we don't know who he is. Then there's a temple dedicated to him in, actually this big Sannadhi dedicated to him in Thiruavadurai near Tanjavur. So that is a big personality of Tirumular. And then I forgot to acknowledge the prior singer Sharanya Srinivas, who sang so beautifully the verse from the Upanishad in the first chapter. Then Tirumular's Tirumandiram sung by Anush Ganesh from Columbus, Ohio. And then the chorus on that is sung by my daughter Vidita Kanniks. Then from Tirumular, we make an abrupt transition to Tantra. See, the Lalita Sahasranamam is something that we take for granted at home. A lot of people chant it, but then do we actually, if you pay a little bit of attention, you see a section on the different chakras and the Kundalini yoga itself. So it's like, it's nothing exotic. It's part of Tantra, and it has been around for a long time. And that is the point we're trying to bring out here. And the sisters, Kiran and Nivi Sai Shankar, have really brought out the essence of it in the raga Lalita. See, Lalita Sahasranamam in the raga Lalita. Lalita is a raga without a panchamam. And with a little bit of variation, you have a raga called Lalit in Hindustani music. And then jumping from that is the soft tenor of Vasudev Krishna, the son of singer Unikrishnan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he sings a portion connected to Adi Shankara, right? So I could not bring a southern raga there, but I immediately brought Kedar to show the association between Kedarnath and Adi Shankara. And look at Adi Shankara. So it's like he took priests from Kerala and had them do worship for generations together in Badrinath. So it kind of reminds you of what Bharatiyar sang just last century, right? Sindhi Nadin Misai Nadi Nile Cheran Natidam Ilam Pengaludane Sundara Telinginil Party Saite Tonigaloti Veladidum. Like on the rivers of the Sindhu, we will with people from Kerala, we'll sing songs in Telugu. So what kind of an integration was this man dreaming about? And that is the kind of stuff that was actually executed. And the Aparoksha Anubhuti talks about a 15-path way to the realization of your oneness, or realization of the state of oneness. And the 8 Ashtangas are a part of that. And Adi Shankara makes it very clear that Hatha Yoga is to be practiced along with Raja Yoga. And we bring it out using the raga Kedar and punctuate it with just one line of a raga Jogia, again in the context of yoga. So, and then at the end of it, thank you.
Go on.
At the end of it, we bring a line from Yoga Yagyavalkya with, again, Abhay singing it in Raga Jog again, showing yoga's rootedness in non-duality.
It's absolutely fascinating. And I find it that how you brought out the national integration from an early period, and I call this an unspoken story. Nobody's talking about this. When you say that it's exceedingly important to talk about the work Thirumandiram, which is such an ancient work, absolutely necessary to learn about the person who did this and more about his works, but we are clueless. None of us know about this. And the reason is our textbooks are so messed up. We have no notion of national integration, whereas you have shown the historical tradition. There is no doubt about it at all, about the way yoga is in practice. There is deep national integration from this part. So for that, thank you very much, Kanniksji, for bringing out these references over here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So going on, I observe next, talking about integration, you started in the 3rd section from Kashmir.
Yeah.
With Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And you used Raga Bhairav.
Yeah.
And you followed that up. From there, you went strangely to Devagiri in Maharashtra. Yeah. So there's a backstory here, and we'd love to hear from you the backstory.
Totally. See, first of all, the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, it was written in Kashmir. See, Kashmir is an important place where a lot of things came into being. I don't have to preach to the choir. People are beginning to realize it now. But I think it's important for everybody to realize it in context. So works of yoga as well as other works where the Natya Shastra was commented upon by Abhinava Gupta of Kashmir, right? And so 1,000 years later. And the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra was written there, so which is the reason I used the Raga Bhairav. And we had the fortune of having a singer by name Rahul Vanchu, who's from Kashmir, who had a segment filmed in Srinagar just for the sake of this video. So it is really beautiful that people rose to the occasion to support this. And then from there we talk about Sarangadev. Sarangadev's family, his father's family, migrated to Devagiri for various political reasons and all that, and they were into Ayurveda. Okay, so these are all Renaissance personalities that we're talking about. So Sarangadeva lived in Devagiri, and he wrote this elaborate treatise called the Sangeeta Ratnakara, which is revered both in southern India as well as in northern India. It's a huge treatise on music which laid the foundation for a lot of things that were to evolve later, right? So look at this. An Ayurveda guy from Kashmir lives in central India. He talks about music. And in one of the sections called Pindotpatti, he actually talks in detail about Kundalini Yoga. So this is an important connection out here. The connection is even more important because the Bhashya for the Sangeeta Ratnakara was written later, and the lineage of Sishyas who came down migrated further down to Vijayanagar, and from there migrated down to the Tanjavur kingdom. And that is where the descendant of this line of musicians, musicologists, wrote a work called Chaturdandi Prakashika, which was again elaborated upon by the grandson of the author of the Chaturdandi Prakashika, who was a teacher of Ramaswamy Dikshitar, who is the father of Muthuswamy Dikshitar, and who has led to a lot of disciple lineages over the last couple of 100 years. And so look at the connection all the way from Kashmir to Tiruvarur, or even Ettaipuram, very passed away. And Muthuswamy Dikshitar's nephew's name is Subbarama Dikshitar, and he was praised by Mahakavi Subramanya Bharatiyar as one of the most realized musical souls ever. He wrote an elegy to him down in the deep south in Ettaipuram. So look at the connection between Kashmir and Ettaipuram on Tirunelveli, or literally Kashmir to Kanyakumari, all through music. And in the middle of this, you have a liberal sprinkling of Ashtanga Yoga. And then soon after this, Sarangadev, we jump into symbolically, we jump into the Siddha tradition of Tamil Nadu, which has been around for a long time also. The Siddha tradition is all in Tamil. Okay? And a lot of them are very easy to understand on one layer, but on the other, when you go inside, there's a lot of meaning. There's layers of meaning. You need somebody to help interpret them. So again, we have this rendered in a very powerful way, very beautiful way, very expressive way by Kalai Magan. And the Shuddha Sarang the Raga Shuddha Sarang was rendered by Subha Chaki of the Bay Area, California. So the folk music is what brings chapter 3 of the thing to a close.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
The main intention behind the folk music was to show that words like Ashtanga, Kundalini, and concepts such as Kundalini were in common place in this poetry. Right. It was not high literature. It was not. I mean, everything is high literature, but it was not something that was not accessible to the masses or anything like that. It was there.
Right. Absolutely. So our hosts are indicating to me about the time. So I will wrap up the last two questions, and it's just one over here, Kanniksji. So in the fourth section, you're highlighting Hatha Yoga, Pradipika, and you're going from Gorakhpur to Gujarat, and then you're shifting to Chidambaram and Hampi, and you're concluding with Yoga Sutras and Rag Desha, bringing the country itself, various parts of country together, imagery of leaders like Swami Vivekananda, whose anniversary is today, by the way, July 4th. And also how yoga migrates abroad. So in our concluding minutes, can you please elaborate on these two sections for us?
Yeah, very quickly. Yes. Sorry, I got carried away in my explanation. So it's like the Gorakhpur Hatha Yoga Pradipika, a lot of people know about it. Then there's also a depiction of yoga poses in Gujarat. Again, look at the regions transfers. And then the Tamil tradition, the Saiva Siddhanta tradition, where we talk about Yoga Margam as one of the 4 ways to reach Charya, Kriya, Yoga, and Jnana are the 4 ways to reach Shiva. And Ashtanga Yoga is well described in that also. And then Hampi, you have the depiction of yoga poses in sculpture in Hampi. The Nerur is the Samadhi of Sadashiva Brahmendra, who wrote an elaboration upon the Yoga Sutras many years after it was written. And then I come to the culmination of that section through Muthuswami Dikshita. Muthuswami Dikshita, he was we had to have a separate session on Muthuswami Dikshita altogether. He lived about 200 years ago. And in his Guru Guha Vibhakti Kritis, he presents concepts such as, he describes the Guru as Yama Niyamadi Ashtanga Yoga Vihita, the one who is realized through the Ashtanga Yoga, and then also Mantra, the Ajappa, Hamsa, Dhyanaha, then Guru Guha. So that is how he describes them. So I integrate those phrases together in a raga called Udaya Ravi Chandrika. And then the Hampi portion is in Raga Kannada Gaula for obvious reasons. It's in Karnataka. Yes. Then Hamsa Soham is in the Raga Hamsa Dhvani for obvious reasons. So the ragas are all tied here. And the singers Vivek Sadasivam and again Kalaimagan, then Kriti Bhatt from Karnataka, as well as Nishant Bodia from the Bay Area. And so that is section 4. But the last one is really the culmination of the whole thing. It's in Raga Desh, because it ties everything together, right? So Desh represents India, and then there's a Tarana. There's a lot of stories being said in the last section through visuals as well as through captions, showing a quick progression of this and the migration of yoga towards the West. And the last few seconds make it abundantly clear that, look, things have happened in the last 100 years. They're built on a foundation of the past 3,000 years. So you see a quick succession of images of the personalities we discussed before, and we conclude with the slide of Patanjali and the sign of Namaste with this message of acknowledgement at the end. So that is what. Importantly, the Ajapa Natana. So Hamsa the Ajapa, Mantra the Ajapa Hamsa Dhyano. The sound of the breath itself. So and hum, sa and hum, gives you the composite hamsa. The soundless dance of Shiva is referred to as Ajapa Natana, and it is enacted a couple of times a year in Tiruvarur near Tanjavur, as well as in many other shrines where Sannadhis where Tyagaraja is enshrined, including Tiruvanmiyur in Chennai and Tiruvattur in Chennai, Tirukachur in Chennai, and a lot of other places. So this literally represents the culmination of all this. So so that is why we bring visuals of Ajapa dance into section 4. So it's the bottom line is that yoga is there amongst us. You just have to look for us. The Ajapa Nadana, which we take for granted, Tirumular, who comes out in procession every year, and the verses of Tirumular, the verses of all these works that we have talked about. So it is not something that is out there. It is not something that is inaccessible or anything like that. Sculptures of yoga. So it is part of the Indian cultural DNA. It is very strongly imprinted in the Indian cultural DNA, which is what I'm striving to say in this whole production.
So I think you've done a magnificent job. I think you've done a magnificent job in that, Kanniks ji. So thank you so much for this documentary, which is going to be of lasting value for us, for the references you have made. And thank you to all the people who worked with you on making this magnificent production also.
Yeah, I hope I haven't left out any names, and I want to thank everybody that was part of it. In particular, I want to thank Sai Shravanam for helping out with the mixing and the mastering, and he's rendered a magical touch to the whole thing. To all the singers and to our hosts for today, thank you so much for having us and enabling me to share this information. And as you can see, there's a lot more to share, but at least we got an opportunity to share this much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raj and Dr. Kanniks, for really a very engaging and conversation. Today morning, I got an email, and I would just like to share my screen, because you've touched. Can you see this?
Yeah.
This is, you seem to have touched every aspect of this particular mail, which looked at yoga and cultural appropriateness, appreciation, and respect. In terms of positionality, you've talked about integrity, fidelity, commitment, about loving our culture, loving yoga, and living yoga, and knowing our place in a long lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of sacred speech, the meanings of Sanskrit words in yoga, and applying the meanings of Sanskrit words in yoga, and also through our musical texts and our songs. sacred objects. You've talked about our temples and all the sculpture that reflects this sacredness. The teaching of yoga. You've talked about the Guru Shishya Parampara and inspiring students to love, live, respect, and practice yoga with integrity, fidelity, and commitment. And studying yoga and as well as writing on yoga, Dr. Raj Vedam emphasized, representing culture and teachings accurately and respectfully, inspiring others to uphold dharma, and citing accurately without, misquoting our texts and using it in the wrong context. So thank you so much. And sadly, we have to, all good things come to an end. And I hope we can catch up with you in other forums of the Center for Soft Power, which is a sister concern of Indica Yoga, and which me and my colleagues represent. We are looking at India's influence and her attraction to people outside India, and also the diaspora. Considering the large number of musicians who are from the US, it's wonderful that the way you have upholding our traditions there. And we would now we have come to the end of today's session. I request Koti Garu to put up the slide for tomorrow's session. Koti Garu, as we have our festival between 21st June to 18th July, with the theme being healing, well-being, and wisdom. We have 2 sessions tomorrow. We have Ganesh Giriji, founder Indo-Shiki Yoga Japan. He will be speaking on integrating Zen practices into yoga. And in the evening, we have healing through the Mahabharata with Sri Raghu Anantnarayanji, the founder of Ritambara Ashram, again, a co-collaborator for this festival. Thank you so much, Dr. Kanniks and Dr. Raj Vedam, and my colleagues at Indica Yoga for giving us an opportunity to shed light on yoga through music. I think music is very, very close to all of our hearts. And thank you, sir, for bringing it right at the center where it belongs.
Thank you so much. My apologies to anybody that I might have inadvertently left out in my list of acknowledgements. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And good evening to everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, Aparna ji, and thank you, Kanniks ji. This is Vinay Chandra. I'm just coming in to request a message that you want to share with all our participants. This is a practice that we have keeping in all our sessions. At the end, a departing message for the day.
I want to say so many things, but I don't know where to start, but I'll just make it. Okay. First thing is, this is our heritage. Please share it. And my request to everyone here, please share the documentary in all your circles. And this is very important knowledge that yoga is us. Yoga is imprinted in our cultural DNA, and it's important for us to share it with everyone. And thank you so much.
Thank you. That brings us to our next question. How can people connect with you or follow your work and share this documentary? What are the avenues through which they can do this?
Okay, one is kanniks@gmail.com. I'm very easily accessible. Kanniks, Kanniks @gmail.com. Or you can connect
Kanniks
@gmail.com. I'm happy to share this in different forums, and happy to speak anywhere, because this message is much bigger than all of us. So I'm only coming from a space of gratitude, not anything else. So we are all grateful to our culture for making this available to us, and the internet and the resources of today for making all this information accessible, and the media for actually being able to render it and tell a story in a powerful way. So I'm coming totally from a space of gratitude and the humility that we are speaking about something much bigger than all of us. So if you want me to speak about this in other places, I'm totally open. Kanniks@gmail.com. On Facebook, please feel free to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. The handle is @Kanniks, Kanniks. So, and yeah, anytime.
Wonderful. I mean, the value of what you have created is, I think, beyond any measure. and it's going to be there as a document, as Raj Vedamji said, for the posterity and for all times to represent the historicity, I mean, various integrity, many aspects of the yoga tradition. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you,
because
Ji.
I very clearly remember a question that some of us were asked in one of the earlier Sanskrit conferences that was held in Canada recently. Are North Indians imposing yoga on you people, South Indians? I mean, this was a shocking question. So these are the kind of narratives that are going around. And in that context, this production has immense value, and we take it with great respect. So thank you very much for producing this and bringing this to all of us. And Rajvedamji, thank you very much for having such a keen eye to look at the details and bring it into the conversation. I don't think anyone else could have done that. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
One more, there's a few more videos coming. There's one on Nadi Yoga, and there's a few others coming over the next few months. And so as I'll keep this group posted, so please do watch all those as well. Yes.
We would like to definitely partner with you on this and see how we can take this forward to as many people as possible on the globe.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaste from all of us at Indica Yoga, from Center for Soft Power, from all the other partnering organizations, Ritambara Wellness, Ritambara Ashram, and Indian Yoga Association. We extend a profound sense of gratitude to what we have received. Namaste.
Thank you, Ji. Namaste.